All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Basecamp Briefings today. I'm excited to be here. So a special thanks to our data partner, HireGov, who we use for market research, intel, solicitation data, and more. We're super excited to dig into OASIS Plus today and talk about things that you need to do to win. So first up, I wanted to introduce ourselves. My name is Kristen Maycumber, and I am the founder and CEO of Summit Strategy. I've spent my entire career helping government contractors and professional services firms win more, bid smarter, and position themselves for long-term success. And I am joined today by Carol Turpin, who is our resident expert on GSA and self-scoring proposals. She's been supporting clients with GSA schedules since 1999 and has worked on several self-scoring proposals since GSA's original Alliant in 2007. And then on OASIS Plus, she has a great track record. She helped win 77 domain awards to date, which is about an 80% win rate, and the remainder of those haven't been announced yet. So thanks for joining me today, Carol. At Summit Strategy, we specialize in strategic BD, proposal writing, marketing and training, and supporting our clients navigating complex pursuits, just like OASIS Plus, like NASA SOUP 6, Army Maps, etc. So here is what we are going to cover today. We're going to do a deep dive into OASIS Plus. We're going to talk about the scoring and how to get the best score. We're going to jump through pricing and some other stuff. And then we're going to close by talking about some common readiness gaps that we see often and how to overcome those and get ready for that on-ramp. And then we'll just talk about next steps and what the timing looks like for that next on-ramp. All right, so first up is an OASIS Plus overview. So for those of you that may not be familiar, OASIS Plus stands for One Acquisition Solution for Integrated Services Plus, otherwise known as OASIS Plus. This is basically GSA's way of bundling a broad range of professional services under one giant contract. OASIS Plus is a suite of government IDIQ contracts, and we'll break down what those contracts look like here in a second. But it's a multi-award, best-in-class contract, and it's built to make it easier for agencies to buy professional services. And just to be clear, on these webinars, we talk a lot about building strategies that cover both federal and SLED, state and local markets. But what OASIS Plus is really just strictly for the federal side of the house. OASIS Plus covers 8 technical domains, which is basically groups of related NAICS codes that span complex, non-IT, non-commercial services. So this is not an IT contract. It's not a construction contract. It's not an A&E services contract. So think about it for things like management consulting, logistics, R&D, program support across any contract type, CONUS or OCONUS. So why should you care? OASIS Plus brings value to both government and industry. For agencies and for the federal side, it expands service options, it saves time, it gives them access to firms like yours. And then, of course, for industry, it's a long term contract with more government wide opportunities, easier teaming, and major advantages for small businesses, especially that are looking to scale. So let's talk about why this matters right now. I think we've all seen the news. We've talked about this in previous Basecamp briefings. There's been a strategic shift that's been happening over the last few months. GSA is really being positioned as the federal government's contracting center of excellence, which means that more dollars and more decisions are going to be flowing through GSA. Combine that with the pressure that agencies already feel in fiscal year 25 to obligate funds fast. OASIS Plus can become that contract that you want in your toolbox, and you're going to want it now as soon as that on ramp opens. So let's pause for our reality check, the first one here today. OneGov is changing the rules, and they're doing it fast. So GSA rolled out the OneGov strategy in April. I'm sure everyone saw the news. It's already shaking up how the government buys. The goal is really to eliminate duplicative contracts across agencies and modernize the entire federal buying process. What that really means, though, is there's going to be fewer vehicles, and GSAs can actually control more of the spend through its own portfolio. So let's have a little fun and try to predict the future. I like to call this Carol's crystal ball because this is really her predictions. So, what do we think is going to happen with all of this? Alliant 3 is still under evaluation. GSA may expand the number of wards beyond the planned 100 to meet demand. This vehicle will support advanced IT solutions, so think things like AI, automation, edge computing, emerging tech. Then we have Polaris, which is the small business GWAC that also supports IT requirements, including emerging technologies. This one's active already. Awards are continuing to roll out. We may see a surprise on ramp sooner than we think. So we're predicting that now. And then combined with these two, so we have 8A Stars 3, and then we have VETS 2. So combine all of those, and GSA has a solid large and small business IT suite lockdown. Of course, we know the the multiple award schedule, isn't going anywhere. That's going to remain the go-to for commercial products and services, including IT. And then, of course, we're talking about OASIS Plus today. That's GSA's answer for everything that's not IT. So this rounds out the perfect lineup to absorb spending from any duplicative contract across the government. So in other words, GSA is really stacking the deck with all of these vehicles. And if you're not on one of these core vehicles, you're going to need a plan B fast. But let's be clear about what that really means. Competition is going up, not down. So as more work consolidates under fewer, larger vehicles, the barrier to entry is getting higher and the field is going to get even more crowded. So again, if you're not planning ahead, you're going to get left behind. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Carol, who's going to walk us through OASIS Plus in detail.
Right. Thanks, Kristen. To understand how powerful OASIS Plus is, let's look for a moment at how it came to be. In part, it's the continuation of the OG OASIS contract family. The ordering period for those contracts ended last December, although some tasks may continue performance for a few more years. It also includes the scope of GSA's other contract vehicles that are due to end in 2026, namely the building maintenance and operations contracts and the human capital and training solutions family of contracts. And here's a look at the spend on those predecessor contract families. You can see that BMO and HCATs are significantly smaller than the OASIS contracts. So even before the current era of consolidation, it made sense to find a way to roll them into a larger vehicle to minimize administrative costs. 86 billion is still a pretty rich target environment of task orders that have either recently expired or will be expiring in the near term. And the numbers are way higher if you include subcontracted dollars as well, to the tune of $132 billion. These are the top NAICS codes for spending on those contracts. And as you can see, they either already appear on OASIS Plus or will be added in the near future. And here are the top customers. The DoD has been a major proponent of OASIS Plus from the get-go, unsurprisingly, since they want to maintain access to their mission-critical services. GSA's always been one of the greatest proponents of small businesses. And we just saw with OASIS and HCATs that they had dedicated small business and 8A set-aside contracts. Building on that success, GSA went even further with OASIS Plus and created 6 parallel contracts that are nearly identical except for the necessary differences due to size standards and certifications. You can bid on as many contracts as you're qualified for as long as you can meet or beat the point threshold. It's a bit of a headache to manage and report on 6 parallel contracts, but it's sure worth having access to all the opportunities. And you're probably aware that GSA began rolling out award notices for the small business and socioeconomic contracts more than 6 months ago, and they still have some in the hopper. Key thing is, though, regardless of when your contract is awarded, you will have a full 5 years in the base period, but the option period will be shortened so that all contracts under any one solicitation will end at the same time. There are some 1,900 companies that have more than 2,900 awards so far, meaning that most companies have 2 or more domains, or they have the same domain on multiple contracts. And we'll talk about what domains are in a moment. A number of small businesses have all domains on 1 or more of the contracts. Because almost everyone's familiar with the multiple award schedule, MAS, or the GSA schedule program, we're going to do a quick comparison. Both are excellent tools to have in your toolbox, as we'll see. As we noted earlier, OASIS is not an IT contract, while for MAS, IT is probably the best known and certainly most valuable offering. OASIS Plus has the unrestricted and SBSE contracts. That's GSA's group term for the total small business and the socioeconomic set-aside contracts. MAS allows set-asides, but only at the order level. Teaming is encouraged on both programs, but on OASIS Plus, all team members must be small in order to bid on the small biz master contracts or on task orders on those contracts. But from our viewpoint, the best thing about both programs is that there's no limit on this number of awards. While OASIS Plus focuses on providing custom services to federal customers, MAS provides commercial services and products to a much broader range of government agencies and even commercial firms serving as prime contractors. The 8 domains currently on OASIS Plus appear here. You can see that it's a much narrower but deeper range of services than the soup to nuts approach on MAS categories. Right now, the number of OASIS contractors is just a fraction of the number on the MAS program. But if OASIS Plus goes evergreen, and as GSA starts consolidating federal contracts under its umbrella in earnest, who knows how many there might be eventually. In fact, I would not be surprised at all to see OASIS Plus evolve into a perpetual vehicle like MAS, since they complement each other so well. These are 3 terms you'll hear a lot. On-ramp refers to allowing new offerers to get contracts. So if you missed the boat 2 years ago for whatever reason, the on-ramp will be your chance to get on board now. Domain extension allows existing contractors to broaden their scope to new domains. And lateral springboarding allows small business contractors to add other small business contracts for which they qualify. So for example, if you have the total small business contract now and just got your 8A or service disabled veteran-owned business certification, you can add the new contract to your toolbox. Phase 2 will give us all 3 of these opportunities at once. Each one will involve full-blown proposals. So whether you're new to OASIS Plus or looking to broaden your existing scope, you'll need to have all your scoring and substantiation ready. Another great thing about Phase 2 is that it's not just your chance to get your hands on the original 8 domains. It's also your shot at up to 5 new domains. This visual summarizes the program structure with its 6 contracts and 8 current domains. These are all what's known as Phase 1. And most recently, GSA indicated that they still intend to add financial and human capital services in Phase 2, and then the others later. That may still be the case, or given how things have been changing and delayed this year, they may wind up adding all 5 new domains at once. Now let's start looking at what you'll have to do to put your proposal together, because the sooner you start, the better. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of how to win this thing. Here's another reality check. The first rule of self-scoring proposals is if you can't prove it, it's not real. Every single credit you claim must be verified by some form of contractual documentation, a statement of work, award form, CPARs, or a letter from your contracting officer. Further, you'll need to collect those documents in PDF form and highlight them using keywords to point the evaluator directly to the page, paragraph, and line that supports your claim. Then in the online submission portal, Symphony, you'll tell GSA what those keywords or tags are. Pro tip: it is essential to be consistent in using the same keywords and format across all your documents, especially if you're bidding on multiple domains and contracts, because otherwise you'll have an enormous headache when you're entering data in Symphony. So what does it take to win? Here's a typical breakdown of scoring for the SB and SE contracts. There are 15, and yes, you heard that right, 15 different score sheets. Each of the 8 domains has one score sheet for unrestricted and one for SB and SE, except for Enterprise Solutions, which is only on the unrestricted contract. The reason for so many different score sheets is that the credit allocations and combinations vary by domain and size standard. You'll hear me say that a few times. GSA did extensive, exhaustive market research to determine the typical large and small business capabilities and define requirements for each domain. So for example, in an industry like facilities management, where having a contractor facility clearance is not commonly required, GSA didn't put credits in that area, so companies would not invest in an expensive qualification just to get a point. Of 50 total possible points or credits, you need at least 42 for unrestricted and at least 36 for the SB and SE contracts. How you get to that threshold is up to you. There are no gate criteria and no must-have corporate qualifications. There are 5 basic buckets of credits. The majority come from what are called qualifying projects or QPs. You can have up to 5 QPs per domain and size standard, and you can reuse projects across domains. Past performance is closely linked to the QPs. You can only score credits for those relevant QPs that have high enough CPARs ratings. If you have federal prime contracts, you can use them to get more points. Business systems, billing rates, and facility clearances tend to be grouped together in another bucket. And the last group of credits comes from various corporate certifications like ISO and CMMI. We're going to look at each section in some detail now, and I'm going to start with the last few sections because they're a lot simpler. Generally, you can get 3 to 4 credits in this area, but the credit allocation differs by domain and size standard. For example, the environmental domain doesn't include credit for a facility clearance, and the facilities domain doesn't include any credits in these areas at all. Even where they are included, it's entirely possible to get 36 credits without any of these qualifications. The scoring is different again on the unrestricted side because there are other business systems and corporate certifications that are good for a few additional credits. But it's still possible to get to 42 without any of these qualifications. And those systems and certs are things that are more typical for large businesses to have because they're more expensive and more time consuming to get. The requirement for business systems like the accounting system is that it must be approved by a government agency like DCAA or DCMA. In most cases, you get a point for any level facility clearance. For the certifications, you must have them complete by the time of submission because you will need to provide a copy of the certificate. Okay, so much for easy. Now let's start looking at QPs, PPs, and FEPs, where the rest of your credits will come from. First off, there are basic qualifications for any contract you want to use, as shown here. There's a minimum annualized value requirement, and yes, it differs by domain and size standard. You can use any single contract or task order or OTA. Notably, if you have a single award vehicle like a BPA, you can combine those task orders off of that BPA into a single collection in order to reach the minimum value or achieve a higher scoring threshold. But you can only do that for one QP. There's no minimum performance period. The recency period is, of course, going to change from the old date shown here. This date was based on the original RFP release without regard to questions and answers or extensions due to amendments. So expect the same approach next time. Okay. And I am blinking a bit. Apologies, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties, but I'll be right back here. I seem to have a little blinky here. There we go. I'm stopped blinking. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so the single most important scoring factor is relevance. This is where you can get up to 20 points out of the 36 or 42 that you need. What does relevant mean? It means that the contract's NAICS code matches one of the NAICS that GSA has associated with the domain. Domains range from having as few as 8 to as many as 30 NAICS codes each. Many NAICS appear in multiple domains, so a single contract might be usable as a relevant QP in more than one domain. What happens if your contract's NAICS code doesn't match the domain or doesn't even have a NAICS? If the contract's not really relevant to the domain, you can use it for scoring points in other areas, but not here. If it is relevant, but the paperwork doesn't show that, there's still a path forward. Learn this term, JP3. You will hear it a lot. In fact, if you're familiar with Alliant 3, GSA had an attachment by the same name there. The JP3 project verification form can be used to explain why your contract is relevant to your domain, even if it doesn't match the NAICS. If your contracting officer signs the form, you can be sure that GSA will accept your claim for these points. The JP3 is also good for substantiating just about every other contractual detail. So if you don't have any other documentation to support your points, like for example, if your contract is classified, then butter up your KO so that they will sign that form. The next area after relevance is scale, where you can get points based on either the contract's average annual value or the number of FTEs on it. The value thresholds for scoring points are above and beyond the minimum value necessary for the contract to be used in the domain. Note that this is your first example of where the math might not add up. Here, each QP can get up to 2 points, but there's a 6-point cap. So even if you have all 10 possible points from your contracts, only 6 count in the scale area. And sadly, you can't take the extra points and move them to another area. You can get credits for integrated experience if your QPs have a certain number of labor categories. And GSA does consider different levels to be different LCATs, so a principal engineer and a junior engineer count as 2. Alternatively, you can get the credits by showing that the contract was broad enough in scope to encompass multiple functional areas as shown here. Remember, I keep saying credits differ by domain? Well, 3 of the domains, logistics, environmental, and facilities, actually have separate credit categories for industry-specific specialized functional experience. Those credits replace some or all of the credits for systems, rates, certifications, or clearances. You can get points for each QP with surge capability that was actually performed. Just having an optional surge CLIN that was never exercised won't count. You can also get points for managing a certain number of subcontractors. That includes 1099s, and more if you have personnel who are required to have security clearances. This is another place to watch the points because the 7-point cap is lower than the possible mathematical points. And now let's look at past performance. Past performance is the only area that's consistent across all domains and size standards. And despite that, or maybe because of it, this was one of the areas that most commonly tripped up bidders the first time, for 5 reasons. First, no QP can have a negative past performance score. If there is an existing CPAR, GSA will evaluate it and will toss the contract entirely if it is below satisfactory. That means not only do you not get any credit for past performance, you also lose any other credits associated with that contract. So carefully select your contracts. 2, only relevant QPs can get additional credits for past performance. Non-relevant QPs won't count. 3, only certain standard elements are counted for scoring: technical, schedule, cost control, and management. Small business subcontracting also counts, but only on the unrestricted contract. 4, to get any credit, a QP has to be rated above just satisfactory, and that's counted as averaging more than 3 out of a possible 5 points. And finally, you don't get any credit in this area unless you have at least 3 QPs with positive ratings. If you don't have a CPARS, you can use the JP6 attachment, which is a standard past performance questionnaire, or PPQ. Here's the last credit bucket. Federal experience projects have pretty much the same requirements as QPs, although each contract can be as low as $250,000 average annual value. And that value does not change across domains or size standards. Any of your QPs that are federal prime contracts can also get credit in this area. But if need be, you can bring in entirely different contracts for this bucket. The number of credits available in the multiple award competition area varies by domain and size standard. Note also that on the R&D domain, there are 2 additional FEP credit areas for cost plus contracts and advanced R&D. For all domains and sizes, if you can demonstrate support for at least 3 different federal agencies, you can get another credit. And again, you can bring in more contracts to get this credit. If this is you right now, don't feel bad. You're not alone. I've been following this contract since 2022 through all the drafts and literally thousands of questions, and I'm still running back to flip pages in the RFP almost daily. But don't worry, we've got you covered. This is my 30-second plug for our OASIS Plus support service, which leverages our proprietary OASIS Plus Summit Guide to help keep track of all your contracts and qualifications and the potential points they can score. If you're not sure what works best for which domain, or if any combination of contracts can possibly get you over 36 or 42 points, we'll be able to help you figure that out. This tool is in beta testing right now, but will be ready very soon. We're already gearing up to get you ready for the on-ramp, so reach out to Kristen for more information. And we're going to talk pricing for a moment, and it'll be brief, I promise. Originally, GSA didn't even include pricing at the IDIQ level because, as we all know, the real pricing exercise happens at the task order level, and they want customers to have maximum flexibility to craft requirements and bidders to have max flexibility to propose competitive services. But you may remember a protest related to Polaris, which overlapped the OASIS Plus proposal period, where the complaint was about not having IDIQ level pricing for evaluation purposes. Yeah, someone actually complained about not having to do pricing. Bottom line, GSA had to add labor categories and pricing requirements to both contracts. But they did it in the most maliciously compliant manner they could. They set up 20 labor categories, all at the SME or highest level, And then they literally gave us a price range for the bid rates. So all you have to do is make sure your fully loaded rate fits within that range and provide your indirect rate buildup for GSA to evaluate as fair and reasonable. As long as that buildup is competent, you'll be compliant. And that's it, really. Moreover, none of these labor categories are required, so you're unlikely ever to see them on any task order. And that's good because I know you're looking at that list and realizing that many of them would never even apply to your work. If you do business process improvement or engineering, for example, you're never going to bid environmental scientists or accountants or PR specialists. But to create a level playing field, and so GSA could comply with the court's requirement for them to evaluate pricing, every OASIS Plus contractor has this set of labor categories. Feel free to studiously ignore them after award. There are other documents you will need to include, but they aren't counted for points. Everything on the left side here is required of every bidder. On the right are documents that might be required depending on your particular situation. And here's another reality check. Everything we've looked at so far has been based on the 2023 RFP. Since Executive Order 14160 withdrew the U.S. from the Paris Climate Agreement, we've already seen clauses related to sustainability and climate removed from countless contracts, including OASIS Plus. It won't affect the SBSE contracts, but on the unrestricted contract, which provided up to 2 credits for this subject, we will see the credits reallocated, probably to the QP areas. What else will change? Clearly, there will need to be new score sheets for the new domains, anywhere from 4 to 10, depending on if they add all the prospective domains in one go or not. Maybe if we're really lucky, the Symphony portal will be improved. It had some serious bandwidth issues last time around, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that. Otherwise, probably not much will change, at least insofar as the overall structure and approach to scoring are concerned. GSA went through more than a year of refining their approach, from the draft RFP in 2022 to submission in 2023, releasing several amendments and answering more than 4,500 questions in the process. So they're pretty confident with the vehicle by now. Honestly, I would not be at all surprised if they make the period to submit questions very short. After all, we've had the Phase 1 RFPs for a long time now. I could even see them restricting questions to just the new domains. My crystal ball may be very murky, but those are my best guesses. Regardless, GSA has traditionally provided a lot of advance notice before releasing or reopening their major GWAC solicitations, so we're keeping a very close eye out for any information they provide. Now let's look at some lessons learned from round 1. The BOE requirement is the single biggest source of rejection errors that we saw in the first round. So here's the 411. All bidders must submit an indirect BOE. That is your cost buildup showing labor rate, overhead, G&A, and profit. GSA uses this information to determine that your pricing is fair and reasonable. If you keep that fully burdened rate within the range they gave you, you're done. If for some reason your rates exceed their range, go back and fix it. Because if you don't, you will also have to provide a BOE for your direct rates, providing salary survey and market research data, payroll data, or any other substantiation you can for your proposed rates. And that's going to be a pain in the butt, especially since at least half the LCATs probably are not in your wheelhouse and you'll never use them. So again, make it easy and keep your rates within the range GSA provided. If you need a system approval, or if you're bidding on one of the SBSE contracts and you need a small business certification, you must have it complete before submission. Having it in progress won't cut it. These things can take weeks or even months, So don't put it off any longer. If you're a woman-owned, HUBZone, 8A, or service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, you are by default also eligible to pursue the total small business contract. The credit allocations are identical across all 5 SBSE contracts. It's just a matter of more work in Symphony, the online proposal portal, to put the offer in. I know of several companies that could have a contract right now, but don't because they didn't get their socioeconomic certification in time, and they didn't think to bid on another one of the contracts. Many small companies can also get enough credits to bid on the unrestricted contract, so don't rule it out. This is especially true if you're close to growing out of the small business standards in any of your NAICS. If you can't get the credits alone, consider teaming. The next 2 are related. Every credit you claim has to be supported, and you need to tag or mark your documents with keywords in the comments so that in Symphony they match. If Symphony doesn't see what it's expecting to see, you will at best be very delayed in getting your award, and at worst, you'll fail to win it all. On that same topic, if you tag it perfectly and you don't upload it in the right place in Symphony and then link it correctly, it's all wasted effort. The 5th one is that Symphony has its own brand of logic, and it takes time to learn it. And the longer you wait, the more people are using the system at the same time, and it will drag. There's nothing like filling up your coffee cup and draining it again while waiting for that damn little spinning circle to stop and hoping to heaven that all the work you've done in the last 2 hours hasn't been lost. Spoiler alert, most of the time it's been saved, but not all. So get your Symphony account early. Like now, you can get it now. And as soon as the on-ramp opens up, start playing around. Click on every link, see where everything goes, and start uploading files sooner rather than later. Because we like you, we're going to give you 5 more mistakes to avoid. If your CPARS is satisfactory, they're no good for scoring points. Remember, they have to average out at very good or exceptional. If you do not have CPARS, make sure your KO signs the JP6 and nag the heck out of them until they've confirmed they've submitted it. Because GSA is not obligated to consider anything submitted after the due date. Second is pay attention to those tricky point areas where the math doesn't math right. Like where you can have 5 QPs that each score 3 points, but there's a 7-point ceiling in that area, and the points don't carry over. Make darn sure you're using the correct score sheet for your size standard and domain. A lot of them look alike, but the points are not allocated in the same way. If you don't discover your mistake until you realize Symphony is showing a different score than you expected, it might be too late. And one more point about points. Don't stop at 36 or 42. No matter how solid you think every claim is, GSA could see it differently. If you go in with no cushion, losing just 1 point could make the difference between a win party and a pity party. And finally, and most important, it doesn't matter how obvious you think it is. Document it, highlight it, tag it, upload it, link it, verify it's there, and then download it and make sure it didn't get corrupted. Whether it's a contract period of performance or a business system approval or a certification or a signature, you must prove it. And if there's a single data point for which you don't have existing proof, use the JP3 attachment and get your KO to sign it. With that signature, you're golden. Without it, well, remember, 2 years ago, GSA received more than 2,000 offers, and 2 years later, they still haven't finished making awards. Now they are tasked with doing 4 times the work with half the staff, and they're going to be reopening the floodgates soon. So if you don't make it excruciatingly, blindingly clear that you own every point you claim, at best, you might be one of those companies that's in the last batch of award announcements some distant year in the future. And if you're lucky, it'll be before the 5-year base period is up. And if you're not lucky, well, you spend a whole lot of time and energy and money for a whole lot of nothing, and you'll have to fix the errors and hope you get another opportunity. Here's another reality check. Don't put yourself in the position where you lose and you feel like you need to protest, especially since GSA has already answered more than 4,500 questions and weathered a series of protests. There's not going to be room for much more. Further, with the FAR 2.0 revisions, fewer things are even going to be protestable in the future. So just don't. Okay, so it hasn't been exactly that many. But note that almost every protest has been denied, meaning that the fault lay with the contractor, not with the government. The takeaway is ensure your proposal is thorough, compliant, and accurately represents your company's status and capabilities. Double and triple check that you've not missed any of the requirements. Read the RFP and read it again. All right, and now it's time to go back to Kristen.
All right, thanks, Carol. So let's close with some next steps and what you can do and should be doing now. So you're probably thinking, okay, this is a lot of information. Where do I even start? But we really suggest that if you're interested in competing on OASIS Plus, now is really the time to like get your internal house in order. So things like your quals, your teaming, your pricing, your strategy, and just your game plan in general. So every firm is on one of these three tracks, and there's no shame in where you are as long as you're honest about it and take the steps forward to get to the next place. So maybe you're ready to bid on the on ramp. You've got your score, your team, your infrastructure. Great. It's just a waiting game at this point. Maybe you still need to strengthen your foundation, whether that's teaming, proof point, or just more time. Or maybe you're just not sure where you land. You listen to all of this and just have no idea where to start, don't know where your score might be. And that's where an audit or an assessment might help. And we can talk about that in a second. The key here is to really just stop guessing, figure out what track you're on, and take those right next steps. So here's your next breadcrumb. GSA just announced a couple weeks ago that they're going to do a webinar on May 28th to discuss how they're responding to the new contract consolidation mandates and then what's coming with FAR 2.0, or as they're calling it, the revolutionary FAR overhaul. So if we're lucky, we're going to get updates on OASIS Plus, Alliant 3, and we'll see how clear that Carol's crystal ball truly is. And the announcements everywhere. We've got this linked in our slides that you'll get here later today when we send out an email. But you can check GSA Interact, check your email, but make sure that you're registered and that you're attending this. I really don't want you to miss this. I think it's going to be a lot of great information. Okay, so by the way, we talked a little bit about teaming. We mentioned it a couple times, but I want to dig in a little bit, and I've seen some questions here about teaming. So let's say that you've run the numbers, you've combed through every contract you've got, and you still can't get past those 35 points. Are you sunk? No. That's where your friends might come in. So you can team, and you can use your partner's contracts for credit. You can do it as a traditional prime sub setup or through a JV or a CTA. Either way, it is legit for this one, but there is a catch. You cannot reuse the same experience reference on multiple proposals in the same domain and the same size. So if you do, GSA is going to throw out that duplicate from every proposal that it shows up in. So if you're planning to team, you have to have a clear tracking system in place. We've seen small business teams pull this off and cover every domain, every contract size. It is doable. You just need to plan for it now and not in a panic 2 weeks before the deadline. So if you're going to team with purpose. This is not about teaming with who you like. It's about who's going to help you win. So you want to run every potential partner through this checklist. Do they actually add points to your score? Do they bring past performance in the domains that you're weak? Have they managed task orders before? Are they small in the NAICS you're targeting? And do they have clean, positive CPARs? If the answer is not yes to most, if not all of these, you might be carrying dead weight and it's not worth it to team. All right, so last point here. The on-ramp, which was supposedly expected this summer, might get delayed. And we're just, we'll see what GSA says on their webinar in a few weeks. But don't let that lull you into thinking that you've got time to coast, because when this drops, it's going to be just as competitive, if not more, just as complex, and just as exhausting as last time. So really get your game plan together now. Start prepping now. Pick your top 5 contracts, a couple backups, knock out that missing certification, line up your teaming strategy, figure out what domains your customers are already using and where you might need to pivot. And don't just prepare to bid, prepare to win. We're all in this to win. We're not in it to submit a losing proposal. So update your messaging, tighten your brand, get your website in shape. Because once you do get that award and once you do have a spot on this vehicle, we all know it is go time. And you're going to have to be ready to market the hell out of it. Of course, if you need help, you can call in the experts. And oh, by the way, that's us. So here's how we help. We're OASIS Plus experts. We can help before the on-ramp opens with assessing your score, helping you build out a potential score using our proprietary system, helping you make a go, no-go decision, and just helping with your overall pursuit strategy. After the on-ramp opens, obviously we can provide full proposal management support, compliance checks, scoring optimization, everything soup to nuts. And then after you're awarded, we can help with BD, with capture, with marketing, with task order proposals. And then we're actually doing a lot of training right now for awardees that have won the first go round. And so we're training their teams and helping them make sure that they know how to point their customers to their new vehicle. All right, a few more slides, and then we'll let you guys go today. So up next is our Basecamp briefings on June 2nd, and we're going to be talking about how your proposal isn't winning because it's boring. So if you want to hit that QR code in the top right, that'll take you directly to the LinkedIn Live page to register. And again, that is June 2nd here on LinkedIn Live. And then our next one after that will be July 14th. And we're going to talk about how your BD system is broken and how to fix it. So again, hit that QR code on the top right. That'll take you straight to the registration page. And of course, you can always pause and grab that QR code. So I wanted to say thank you for attending our 4th session of Basecamp Briefings powered by Summit Strategy, which is your go-to webinar series for cutting through the noise in GovCon with actionable strategies to help you win more, bid smarter, and stay ahead of the competition. If you're interested in chatting further, you can connect on LinkedIn, or that QR code goes straight to our calendar where you can schedule time to talk through your OASIS Plus strategy and how we can help you, or any other needs that you might have. So thank you for joining today, and we will make sure to answer the questions in the chat so that we get those answered. I know Carol's been jumping in and answering those already, and we'll send out slides here later today, and we appreciate you guys joining. So thank you. Have a good rest of your day.